question some people have.
Okay.
So, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we were talking.
We're Sandy and Dennis Haley.
Okay.
Gotta get back in line and finish so I don't hold up the line.
Sandy.
Judy. Judy. Nice to see you.
You too.
I'm so glad we got to cross. Everybody says so. Yep. Just
She's a beautiful lady.
Thank you. I gave her the money.
This is Joe. He's the one.
And this is our address, right? And then we'll be at a roster. That's great. And my brother Joe Schaefer is coming with 3 kids. He's still at, yes, they're here. He's still at the parade in Garner. But the kids are here in the hotel, so they're gonna come up, but Joe's gonna pay for them.
Okay,
So that you know.
Well, great. Coming too?
No, he isn't. He had to work. So we're all going to his place tomorrow.
How are you?
I'm good. Good to see
I
you.
just were the.
Yeah, garbage.
Oh,
Yep.
you didn't stop here and
No, I
register?
No, I didn't.
Well, then you gotta pay.
We paid, but I didn't sign in.
Oh, didn't you sign in?
Debbie was signing in and I
Look at this.
I want to make sure I'm on every list for distribution of anything. Because I really like knowing all this stuff.
It's always crash the
I think I know I told you.
Where is that, don't you?
That's what I was
Brian.
Pretty good.
Hello.
He lived in Wisconsin.
Yeah, okay. It was out of state, but I wasn't sure what.
And, let's see, he was married several times.
And what do you have right there? What's that sheet you're looking at?
This one,
Yeah.
I don't know, Judy gave it to me. It's some records, historical records of the family.
Of the family?
It starts back with great grandpa Martin. Okay, so Francis Stupka. Francis.
Years. They have the Buddy Holly rock and roll. Every year they've been having. Let's see, we're in about our 55th. We were here for the 50th.
Oh, I didn't use the name.
Hello there. I'm Billy Schaefer's daughter.
Oh, I do.
Walnut, yeah. Happy birthday coming up. Happy
Throw the shirt.
There's a mess of.
back in there.
Oh, I bet.
I'm going to start with our connection to the Stupkas, and that would be my grandmother, Rose Stupka Mraz, and her husband, Ben Mraz. My parents would be Paul Mraz and his wife, Teresa Dimerly Mraz. As mentioned before, my wife is Therese Fromelt Mraz. Our children are Nicholas Gary, and Veronica. Nicholas has 4 little boys. Teresa, if I forget their names, jump in. Luke, Gabriel, Isaac, and Augustine. Gary has 3 children. They are Leah, Logan, and Owen. Veronica is single. I'll turn it over to my brothers now. Steve?
Okay, I'm Steve Mraz. I was born in 1950. That's my wife over there. She can wave there. She even did. I have 2 children. They both live in New York, Brooklyn, New York. They say they love it there, and it is an interesting place. So if you ever have a chance to go to New York, take the opportunity. I have no grandchildren. I spent most of my life in the Army until I retired. I live in Marshalltown now, and I work at Lennox Industries there, which means you know, I saw the tornado. I'll turn it over to my older brother here, Dennis.
Hi, I'm Dennis. I'm the oldest of these ruffians here. Like I said, the one brother didn't show up. He's getting ready to visit his new granddaughter down in Fort Rucker, Alabama. He flies Chinook helicopters. I saw there's a couple other Vietnam veterans here on one. I know a lot about Chinook helicopters too. We'll just kind of leave it at that. I have my wife Chris back there. We have 4 daughters in 4 different states. We live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Indianapolis, Austin, Texas, and Phoenix, Arizona. So if we want to see anybody, we end up traveling quite a bit. I hate it. My wife loves it, but you know, it's kind of go along anyway. It's a 3-day road trip to Mesa, Arizona, and we can fly in 3 hours. I hate flying, but that's a good way to go. Okay, I get tired of driving. One thing about our ancestors is my brother and I, Steve, even though when we were young, we would fight at the drop of a hat. Both of us had hats, so we fought all the time. Neighbors kind of took bets on which one of us would make it 16 if either one of us. But after we were both in service, we seemed like we called each other all the time when we see each other. You know, if we don't see each other every 4 to 5 weeks, there's something wrong. So we were discussing our grandfather, Ben. Someplace in my house, there's a card that says when Ben got to Chicago, his name was not Ben, okay? It might have been Mraz, okay? But Ben was about this long, the name, and it had all these consonants and about 2 vowels in there someplace, okay? And the judge at when they did immigration said, yeah, you are now Ben, okay? He just cut it just like that. So that's how Ben Mraz came to be. We have no idea Dad's grandpa or anything like that, because my dad never talked about his relatives, period. We don't know if they were in the States or not in the States or whatever. We figured they were probably all horse thieves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, the gentleman back there, Lorraine, with the white hair, he looked just like Uncle Clarence. He looked like Uncle Andy to me, is the way I remember it. So I had to go over and introduce myself. We had a nice talk to see how we were related. So.
Okay, so then you are Martin's side of the family?
Yeah, I guess
Okay.
so.
Yes.
And one other thing that we came up with, I was looking for the photograph. There's a photograph of my grandma Rose, and somehow it was taken in Oregon. Does anybody know how they ever got to Oregon?
A lot of them went to Oregon.
And it's a silhouette, and it looks, when you look at that, like
Was she a child or an adult?
when she was a child, like 13, 14, 15 years old.
Because some of their brothers went to Oregon.
And you look at my 3rd daughter, and it's spitting image, you know, just a silhouette. Scare the tar out of you looking at it.
Oops.
Late arrivals. One's my son and 2 are my grandsons. I'm glad they made it up. Otherwise, I think I think my dad had 4 brothers and 2 sisters. Is that maybe right, fellas?
Oh, yeah, there was more than that.
It's what? Was there 5 boys and 2 girls in the family?
No, there were 7 boys and 3 girls.
7 boys?
Yeah, seven boys and 3 girls.
You know the names? I
Well,
don't.
We only figured out a few of these.
Yeah.
It's in the book.
I know 5 of them. I know 5 of them.
What's that book?
Martin, Andy, Louis, Albert, Jim. That's the only ones I know.
How about Rose?
Well, that's, yeah, she's coming up.
Okay, I got the names here. It's Lena, Jim, Joe, Frank, Mary, Louis, Martin, Catherine, Anton, and Martin, Rose, and Albert.
Yeah, so I missed Joe and Frank. I don't quite be able to follow them. I don't know where they come in at. Who was the baby? Well, who was the oldest?
Who's the oldest? Jim is.
Uncle Jim was the oldest?
James.
He was born at young.
Is he the one that was married to Aunt Bessie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the picture here, it looks like Rose was the youngest.
She is.
Okay, the wife and I, we've been married to what, 40, 50, 60 years? We got 5 kids. We got 3 boys and 2 girls. And we have 1 in Story City, 1 in Elkhart, 1 in Norwalk, 1 in Ankeny, and 1, it depends what time of the year it is. We either find him in California, Sioux Falls, or Okoboji. So I've been retired for 20 years or more. I worked a lot in 5 different states. I started out working for Montgomery Ward. And then they went under, and I went to work, later on I went to work for Hy-Vee, and that's where I finished up at. I don't know what else.
Grandkids.
Yeah, we live in Ankeny in a retirement home. Like it pretty well. We haven't been there a year and a half, but I've had a couple strokes, and so I'm not much help, I don't think.
You want to tell about your siblings?
Yeah. Oh. Well, I got brother Ray. Then I believe it was Agnes, Sister Agnes, I believe. And then it might have been brother Louis and Sister Anna, Sister Dorothy, brother Harold, Sister Millie, and then I'm in there next. What else? I guess that's about it. You're
Thank
next.
you. Thank you.
Sandy.
You gonna talk or you want me to talk?
Oh, you talk, I can't.
Yeah, right.
All right.
I'm Judy Unger Grantonet. My mother was Rose Stupka Unger. She was the daughter of Anton and Christina, and the sister to Frank and Edward Stupka. I'm the youngest, Mary's the oldest.
But why is this?
The best.
My husband Dan is here, and we have 2 children. We have Joe and we have Amy, and Amy and her husband Caleb are here with Amelia, and we live down in Corwith, And I have my mother's scrapbooks and photo albums, so I brought some with us today. But Mom treated friends and family all the same, as far as she just loved everyone. So her albums are Ungers, Stupkas, family friends, all mixed together. So I kind of put sticky Post-it notes where the Stupkas are, so you can kind of look at those pictures, but I'll put them out after we get done with the cake. I'll put them out on there, and you can look at those. Our mom kind of did a lot of the reunions, and our grandmother was a Halick. And so back in the years before the 70s, right? Mom would hold Stupka and Halick reunions together. And somehow there was a problem that somebody didn't want to do that anymore. So we kind of lost track of the Halick side, and Mom just kept on the Stupka side. So in the later years, it kind of got to where the attendance was smaller, and so we decided that our generation would do cousin reunions. So for the last 30 years, maybe, we've just done our immediate family, our immediate cousins, as a cousin reunion, and we've kind of faltered on that the last couple of years, but it's great, and we want to thank you guys for coming up with this. Go ahead.
Okay, so
Just gotta speak up.
I'm Mary, the oldest, and then there's a stillborn sister, Anne Marie, and then my sister Connie, and we call those the BJ years before Judy. And then we have Judy, which was the best thing that ever
That's
happened
not what she's
to our
always
family.
said. She always said that was the worst thing.
But today, as of today, I am making this statement. That was the best thing that ever happened to our family. So therefore, that's it. We're done. He said, this is the story.
Yeah.
I have 2 children. Tina, she's married to Terry Skolaric. They live in Minneapolis. She couldn't be with us today because she is battling cancer. She had made plans to come. She had the reservations. We were going to stay in the motel for 2 days, and she can't come. So they have one son, Owen. So there's another Owen. He's just turned 15, and he scares me. He's going to come and drive down to Iowa to see Grandma. His mother said, "It'll be a while, Mom. He's still on the simulator." So I have a little while preparing. We have a son, Jerry. I said, "Son, it's time you moved out. I don't care if you rent, buy, or whatever." So he bought a house across the street. So, but he has his own house, right? He's out of the house. My husband, Gary, was a truck driver for many years, and we are retired and enjoying it immensely. 24/7. It's wonderful. That's all I have to say.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Joe, for getting this together. This was wonderful.
I'm going to address that in just a second now. I'm going to slip in there next. All right, so thank you. I'm going to come up then. If I did this right, I should be in the frame. If not, better. All right. I appreciate people thanking me for coming or for putting this together, but that I want to set something straight how this all came together. A year ago, I was on a family reunion with her family. What happened, we came back from the family reunion, and I posted a bunch of pictures, and I think it was Paulette that said, "That looks really nice. You should do that for us, and we would come." And I said, "Oh yeah, sure. That sounds great." And then later I heard from, I don't know if it was David or Deb first, think Darlene may have said, that's really good, you should do that. And then all of a sudden I was doing that, and toward Thanksgiving, I don't know who called me first, David or Deb. These would be Frank's kids. Said, I heard you're doing this. And then pretty soon it was, do this quick so that we can all make plans for the summer. So then my sister and I, Leanna, she just stepped out. Hey, come on in.
Oh, go ahead.
But my sister, Leanna, I asked her, I said, I'm panicking because I don't know where to do it. All of the towns that we're associated with are very small. If you bring a lot of people from across the country, they're going to need a place to stay. If they're coming up to stay, they're probably going to stay more than one day. They'll need something to do. And then she said, well, Clear Lake, it's kind of a resort area. And they have a hotel, and we called the hotel, and they had this date open. And they said, start booking quick, because during the summer, they're booked solid every day. And I just checked yesterday, and they said they're sold out for this weekend. So we're lucky to have rooms here and have it in a place that's close to a lot of places that people are either familiar with because they're from there or their family's from there. And they get to go around and see. I hope that you get to tour the countryside and see some of the old farmsteads. Some of them are still around. Some of them have been taken down where we came from or remember from when we were kids. So it's really my aunt and uncle and my distant cousins that I didn't know how I was related to them, but they had Stupka and I had Stupka in my name. When I was born, I didn't have a father, so I was born a Stupka, and when my mom married, my father adopted me and gave me the name Bradfield, but I'm named after Francis Joseph Stupka, Frank. I'm Joseph Francis Stupka, and then was Bradfield. Right. That's how it came together, and then the reunion itself, we didn't even know if anybody was going to come. You guys made the reunion. All I did was my sister and I found a hotel and booked it, and then figured out what the menu should be. The menu was pretty good. I think the food turned out all right. Now, there were also, for me, it's very exciting. Oh, no, you can just walk through. Yeah. Okay. For me, it's exciting because as a child growing up, I had heard of divisions in the family. Now, I didn't know there was a Martin Stupka. I didn't even know there were other Stupkas in Fort Dodge where I grew up and graduated. Never saw them at the reunions that we were having with my second cousin, Judy. And I didn't know why, but I knew that my mom would go to these, but her brothers and sisters didn't go to them. And then had also heard that I have other cousins that they wanted to meet, so they're all here together. And now we also have another branch of the family that goes, how long was I confused about this? We were talking in Facebook, and I knew that my great-grandfather was Anton, and I was wondering, because they kept saying Ed, but it wasn't the same Ed. And this Rose is a new Rose to me. My great uncle Ed, there's no Paulette or Patty in that family. And so I was lost for a long time, and they said, no, you got to change the name of the group, because I thought it was the progeny of Anthony, or Anton, and it was one up from that. It was Martin Sr. And Martin Sr. had children. I don't know how many children he had, or what their names were, or what that branch of the family is.
I want to have everybody hear what I got to say. It's pretty important.
15 minutes, please. Not any more than 15 minutes.
My mom was Agnes. She married Jim Formonic. Then my dad died 3 months after their 25th wedding anniversary. He was 49 and Mom was 43. So she was a widower, but I was the oldest. I was 23 when he died. My sister Ev was a year and a half younger. I had a sister Eileen, which she has passed by now, and then a brother Doug, and he's 14 years younger than I am. I'm 84. I'm probably the oldest person in here. I know some of you are in wheelchairs, but shit, I'm. Huh?
95.
Oh, I'm getting.
She gets surprised.
So we've always lived in North Iowa. I got 4 kids, and I can see every one of them every day. They live around Hayfield, and we're just poor ass farmers, and I think one more year and we'll be out of that, the way it looks.
I
I say the poor ass farmers.
Yeah, right.
So, other than that, I think that's about all I got. It's good to be here. Good to see all you people, even though I don't know you. A lot of times after I beat them, then they want a loan. So, I don't know you.
You're just a poor ass farmer.
And I just became a second-time great-grandpa Tuesday. And that's where my wife is at, bringing that kid home. So, yeah. And thank heavens it looks like a Bohemian Philharmonic.
The door.
Huh?
It was Anna Tlock and Bill Tlock's daughter.
Here, yeah.
Kathy Tlock. My parents were Bill and Anna Tlock. They always were farmers around Garner or Britt area. I have my husband Art is back there, and my daughter Amanda, and her daughter Ari. So that was our first grandchild. I had two other sisters, Betty and Pat, who passed prior to my parents passing. And my parents passed, well, it's been probably 5 to 10 years ago here, so they have passed. But I live in Minneapolis. Judy has kept in touch with me when they have come to visit, and I've really appreciated that. And very grateful to be included in this reunion. This is my cousin Debbie. She was Dorothy's child, you know.
Oh yes, okay. And we actually spent a lot of time together growing up because our mothers were sisters and we were almost the same age. We're same month, same year. So anyway, my parents was Dorothy Stupka and Joseph Bosch, and had an older brother, David, who has passed away. My parents have passed away. My husband has passed away. My cat has passed away. I'm just, you know, but I got, look at all the family I got. So, anyway, I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you for putting it together, and thank you for contacting us.
Who all made it here, Henry, Margie, and Chris, all from Sacramento, California. Yes, so if I don't make sense up here, it's because I'm like so stoked. Okay, so you want me to talk louder? Okay, I'm a teacher as well. So usually the teacher voice, I usually whisper and it gets more attention than if I yell. So, okay, first of all, I'm going to explain this picture that I have in this frame. It has Martin and Christina, Novak was her maiden name. Catherine, thank you, I'm sorry, Catherine. And it has all their 10 kids. And so, just talking with different ones of you, we think that my grandpa Anton is this little guy in this picture over here, and Albert might be right next to him. And we don't know if this little guy is Martin or this one. So whatever book you have, Marvin, it might help me figure this out. This is a copy of a picture my sister sent. So this, I'm from Anton Stupka's side. Anton had 3 children, Rose, which is Judy's mom, and Ed, which is Marvin's dad, and Frank, which was my dad. And so my mom and dad, Frank and Rose, had 9 children. There were 7 girls and 2 boys. And one of those boys is my brother David, who is here, and he came all the way up from Georgia and made it up here with his wife Denise. Yep. And so 6 out of 9 of us were born here in Iowa, Garner, Forest City, different places. The last 3 of us, myself and my brother David and youngest sister Doris, were born in California. And so family moved back to Iowa when I was about 5. We lived on a couple of farms in Clarion, and then moved to Sioux City. Mom and Dad had a gas station for a while, a DX gas station. Then we moved back to California when I was about 13. So I only had a few young years on the farm. Best years a kid can ever have is on that farm. We didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, but none of us seemed to know that. Anyway, so I just recently made the trip back to Iowa after living in California for 55 some years. My brother Don, who will be here later, he lives now in Garner. He moved back to Iowa a few years back, and when I was getting laid off from teaching out there in California, he says, "Come back home, sis." So I did. And I was able to meet a wonderful man, thanks to, yes, my wonderful cousin Judy. Yeah, it was an 1,800-mile,
Nothing is impossible.
little Cupid, there she is. So anyway, so now I live on a farm with my husband Mervyn, just a few miles south of Corwith, who his mother was born on that farm, and my husband has been taking care of that farm pretty much all of his life. So, yay to these, what'd you call them? What kind of farmers? Did you call them?
Broke ass.
Poor ass
Poor blank farmers. Yeah. Well, so anyway,
If we could only be so poor as Richard Vermonic, we would all be happy.
I can't hear.
Yes. Now just to give you the names of all of my siblings, there's Diana, which is Joe and Leanna's mama, and then there's Dorothy, and Dorothy I think talks about you, Dick, still about the Vermonics having that, or was that Agnes? I'm not sure.
Agnes had it.
They had that little bar and restaurant and things.
I got a tape of that that was supposed to be on TV. I brought it.
Okay.
Interviewed the people that were there that day.
Okay. So then there's Diana, Dorothy, Darlene, come up here with me. Do I have to? Yes, please. Darlene, and then there's Dolores, Dawn, Donna, Deborah, David, and Doris.
Wow.
Come on, David, you have to get up here.
Tell your mom to sit it up.
Yeah, so Mother sometimes when she'd, would be hollering and calling for one of us, she'd be like, "Dor, da, dee." And my brother Don would say, "That's awful." Mother, kind of. Anyway, so Darlene and I are wearing these shirts, and I'm hoping one of you will have the answer to my question. I'm sorry that I'm messing up your camera, Joe.
It's finding you.
My friend Paula Chambers in Corwith, her daughter went to Iowa State University. She's trying to become a doctor. She went through all these medical classes and science classes, and she was on the committee for this event that's been happening for like 11 or 12 years. And I think the young man's first name was Don Stupka, that this is in memory of him. He was this amazing brainiac, probably chemist, and helped the department so much there at Iowa State. And so he was killed in an accident. He was on his bicycle and a car hit him. So ever since then, they've been having this like conference or event, and it's a big deal. It's a big production there at Iowa State University. All these different professors and students speaking regarding the science and field of education. So if any of you know who this gentleman was, I really would like to know. I'm sorry that I don't have a whole lot of information, but when she said, yeah, my daughter's in charge of the Stupka committee down there at Iowa State University, I said, Stupka? What? So that's how I got a shirt, was from my friend Paula, because her daughter was involved in this event, that this young man was such a great, contribution that he made. So see, there's not only all these amazing farmers in the family, but you have to be part chemist and part, I don't know, agronomist and part, I don't know. Farmers are amazing to me, all that they have to know. So that's why, if you saw these two shirts, that's how I got them. Anyway, but yes, so it all started with these wonderful people. I have one more story, Joe, if it's okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Mervyn and I went to that little Czech museum and Cedar Rapids.
Oh, is this the one you were telling me about? The
Yeah.
little Bohemian village.
Yes, a little Czech
Thank you.
village. Yes, and in this Czech village, which you all have probably been there, and I got to take my husband there. Who I don't know. Had you ever been there before I took you? See, that's why I came along. And so anyway, what happened was that there was a gentleman that had this meat packing place in this town, and it was the 4th largest in the world at this time, and we're talking early to mid 1800s. And so pretty soon all these Czechs and Bohemians, I don't know the difference between Czechoslovakian and Bohemian, but they started coming and they were working at this meatpacking place, and they were such excellent quality people, hardworking, integrity. He told all of his workers, you have more of your family back there in the country, you tell them to come on. And so that's how that little Czech village started, because of your great ancestors who had the integrity and honesty and dignity and hardworking, ethics. So you come from a great line of good people. And so that's what I wanted to share. We're all blessed so very much. So,
Thank you.
Sorry.
Darlene, you haven't done your thing.
Yeah.
It should be more than Mary's turn first.
Oh, see how she does that? See how she does that? She's trying to get you up here. That's how she got me. Yeah. All right.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
I have to? Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, I'm Darlene, the third in line of those 9 children that Debbie was talking about. And I live in Sioux City. I have 4 sons and 37 grandchildren.
Whoa!
So that's all I have to say.
Okay, you said a lot.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Well, I heard there is a hotel in Germany called the Stupka Hotel, and that the name Stupka is more German than anything else, because I actually ran into a linguist, professor of language, and he asked my name, and when I told him Stupka, and he says, no, it's Stupka. He says, it's a German name. And I said, excuse me? I said, we're from Bohemia. And he says, no, the whole province at one time was German controlled and German influenced. And it, as time rolled on, later became the smaller sectors of Czechoslovakia and Bohemia.
Oh.
And I found that to be incredibly interesting, and I've always wanted to go over to the original stomping ground. And I've got a question. Is it great-grandpa Martin that came from Bohemia? There was no one before him. Is that correct?
Right.
So,
That's right.
okay.
Do you know when he came?
Pardon?
Do you know when he came?
Yes, it's here.
Okay. And what is that book again?
Okay,
It's from Duncan.
it's called the Collections and Recollections, and all of these names that we're hearing, the Formonics, Halix, all this stuff, their
They're
family
on.
histories are in this book.
Awesome.
It says here, the Martin Stupka Sr. family originated with the birth of Martin Stupka on October 14th, 1851 in Bohemia. In 1878, Martin married Catherine Novak, and in 1880 they came to the U.S. and settled near Fort Dodge for 10 years. The family moved to Skio, Oregon for 9 years and then came back to Iowa to farm. They retired into Garner but made another move to Wisconsin where they were living when Catherine passed away. They had 10 children. Mr. Stupka then made his home among his children in Iowa and Wisconsin. Martin Sr. and Catherine are buried in St. Boniface Cemetery near Garner. How about that?
Wow.
So that's these 2 folks right here, Joe. That would be.
We're getting
That
glare.
picture that Deb
Okay.
has is in this book, and it's got the names in order.
Okay.
underneath it.
Okay. Oh, good. I'll have to
His name was Robert Stupka, brilliant person of the sciences. So it says here, a student survived by his loving family, Bob and Diane, and sister Michelle, Andy, Claire, adoring grandparents, Bob and Carol Stupka. Is that any of ours? Pat and Teresa, okay. But anyway, I'll pass that on to you from Google, and it's a great shirt to get because it's so nicely done. But it's on Google. Yeah.
Here's the story. In case y'all know this person, you may know him. I've never heard of him before. In 1982, I found myself in Stuart, Florida. I lived in an apartment on St. Lucie Crescent. I received a postcard in the mail to DJ Stupka, which are my initials, David Joseph Stupka. And it was a thank you card from this furniture store that I had never purchased furniture from. So I got curious because it was addressed to St. Lucie Boulevard, not St. Lucie Crescent. And I looked it up in the phone book, and sure enough, there was a DJ Stupka on St. Lucie Boulevard. And I got real curious, so I made a phone call. And believe it or not, DJ Stupka answered the phone. And I set up a time to go see him. And turns out his name was Deshaun John Stupka. And he was from Sharon, Pennsylvania. And he vacationed in Florida at a real nice condominium, and I was in a 1920s apartment building. But so many strange coincidences. And he actually owned a Pontiac dealership in Sharon, Pennsylvania. So, Deshaun John, in case y'all know him, have we got more kinfolk?
That is really funny because for years I worked at a Pontiac dealership in Clarion, Iowa. And one day a car came into the dealership, and on the license plate it had a frame that said Stupka Pontiac. And it was from Pennsylvania.
How about that?
That's great.
Yeah.
Ah,
But I thought that was very interesting.
thank you.
And my dad was Ed, and his dad was Anton. And I can remember when I was young, Anton and I think they called her Tina, Christine, lived north of Garner, and we'd go up almost every weekend with my parents to visit them on the farm. The farm still is there. The old house and the barn are pretty much the way they were. For a while, one of my sons lived on the farm there too. But we've got 3 children. Mark is our oldest. He's a professor down at Faith Baptist Bible College in Ankeny. Our second oldest boy is Michael. Mike's a real estate appraiser for the state of Minnesota. And he's been in the hospital for the last week. He slipped a disc in his back, so he couldn't make it. My oldest boy is teaching some college classes over in Saipan, so he's in Saipan. Our daughter, Miriam, has 7 children, and they live on the farm with us down between Kanawha and Goodell. And we've lived there for quite a few years. I worked in the bank in Kanawha for 14 years and found out that Darlene is staying in the building that I worked in. They changed it into a winery and some apartments and bed and breakfast. Well, she went there for the winery part, I think. But I don't know. It's been interesting. The book that Mary got, I think she bought it from somebody the last time we had a cousins reunion, and I hadn't really looked at it very much, but it's kind of interesting to look back and see. It's got all of the Bohemians, evidently, that kind of congregated around Britt and Duncan. And it's got a lot of the family histories and some pictures and so forth. But I think that's probably all I can tell you about us.
Now, understand you also have some films of previous reunions that you didn't play this afternoon?
No, that was
No,
Dick.
that's not me.
That was Dick Formanek.
And he's got them?
Yeah.
Okay.
My wife brought an album here that's got a lot of pictures of the Stupka clan, mostly the Anton side, probably.
All right, thank you.
Kalachi.
No, beer is the correct answer, but why is it famous for beer? Number one, the original Budweiser comes from Plzeň in the Czech Republic. And two, the people of the Czech Republic drink more beer per capita than any other country in the world. Hence my problem.
I knew it was genetics.
And the Czech word for beer is?
Pivo.
Pivo. Does everybody know that?
Pivo. Now we do.
Are we ready to start? So,
Okay. All right.
Are there any of Anton Stupkas left to talk? Are there any of the Anton Stupkas left that haven't talked? That's next. We're talking Antons, okay? Then Albert's is next.
Okay.
Okay? Albert Stupka family.
All right. So this is Albert?
This is Albert.
Albert Stupka.
Well, I'm Phyllis. I was married to George Stupka. George Stupka passed away 22 years ago. We had two sons. We had Jim, who graduated from Ames in chemical engineering, and he's been a pharmaceutical consultant ever since, and he has worked in 18 different countries. So he's already taken his mother to quite a few of them, which has been a very interesting life. And our youngest son was born with cerebral palsy and was mentally handicapped along with it. And he lived at Opportunity Village here in Clear Lake for a while, but he died 5 years ago. I missed the heck out of that kid. And I just had the two sons.
And her husband George was brother to Paulette and my father Ed, the other Eddie Stupka.
Okay.
The other Ed Stupka. They were good friends, by the way. They were. Dad died 15 years ago and Mom died 20 years ago. Her name was Ann, Ed and Ann Stupka. He was an insurance agent in Fort Dodge. This is my husband, Carl, Punky to family over here, and we have three daughters. Karen is a nurse practitioner. Amy is something bigger than teller in a bank. I can't keep track. And Sarah works for I don't know what kind of, where does she work?
Like an HR type thing?
Yeah, it's an HR type thing, but she does stuff with computers. Anyway, we have 6 grandchildren. Our oldest is 18. He's going to Purdue next year. But right now he's at the Great Lakes because he's going to be in NROTC at Purdue. So 3-week preparation. And then we have 3 15-year-old grandsons. They were born, like 2 of them were 2 days apart and another one 6 weeks later, so they're the threesome. And they're a lot of fun. We have a 13-year-old grandson, an 11-year-old granddaughter, and now the family with the 15-year-old son and the 11-year-old granddaughter, they're going to have a new baby girl in October. Kind of a surprise. You go and then we'll introduce Marilyn after that. Okay.
I'm sister to Patty. My name is Paulette. And Joe here.
Yeah.
There was a Facebook post, and that's how we got reacquainted, or acquainted for the first time. My next door neighbor growing up was Chris Hoft, and I had made a comment on Chris's Facebook page. Joe saw it and messaged me going, I think we're related. So that's how all that started.
Yeah.
Dark water.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
My husband Robert is standing there.
In a second, I'm going to grab one of those.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know, anybody else that want a quick refill?
Is the camera still
I said
going?
probably is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like it's still going,
Is
yes.
the camera paused? It's still going.
It's still going.
I can pause it.
Well, I can talk. I mean.
Okay, yeah, you can keep going.
You want me to hold your cup for you?
No, I got it. Yeah, because I know what happened then.
I have a son, Mick. He's 37, just turned 37. He goes to different companies in this country having something to do with setting up their computer sites or something. It's beyond me what he does. Our daughter is a stay-at-home mom to two grandchildren. The boy turned 6, the girl's 3. We live in Fort Worth, Texas. I work for, this is a little plug here, but I work for a company called Boomer Benefits. We help people in 47 states decide what Medicare plans they want.
Oh, wow.
Is what we do. I've been there the last 5 years. And I guess on to...
She's also a retired postmaster.
Yeah, I did that too.
And this is Marilyn. She's daughter to Alice, a younger sister of George and Ed.
Right. So, Grandpa Albert, I have to tell you one little story about him. I remember when I was about 10 years old, it was one of those days when nobody was around but just me and Grandma and Grandpa, and I'd go over there and stop on my way to go to school and stuff, and he was pretty quiet all the time, and Grandma was the giggle box in the background. She was always laughing about everything, and he had his ear clear up against this little wood box radio, and I said, he was sitting there laughing, and I said, Grandpa, turn that up. He said, I can't do that, it'll cost more money. We never got to hear the Gildersleeve story. That was what it was. And so Mom is, of course, one of the siblings from there, and then Marilyn, I am the oldest girl of that family. My brother Roger passed away about 14 years ago, and both Mom and Dad have passed away. Dad was 46 when he passed away of cancer, and there were still, out of 6 of us kids, there were still 4 of us home then. Yeah, so it was kind of a sad time, and I ended up marrying the best thing in my life, Mel, and we had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and we're blessed with 5 granddaughters and 1 grandson, and he's 21 now in college and graduate. He's at drum corps right now, going around the countryside, and the girls are 17 years old. They're triplets, and then my daughter has 2 little girls, and that's about it there, I guess.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
Are we done with Albert? Because I want to bring Sandy back up here and have her tell how we met. Because even though...
So, anyway, back in the day when there was always these Stupka reunions, and those cousins went to it. Well, Patty's mother, Ann, and my mother, Mildred, they would sit and chat like everybody gets together, and Millie was like, well, where are your kids? And Ann's like, where are your kids? And, well, mine's out in Virginia. Well, so is mine. And
That's right.
Mine's in D.C. Well, so is mine. Well, actually not that. It's Springfield. Well, so is mine. And so they said, well, we should have our daughters know each other, because we'd never grown up together.
We didn't know each other from
and
the
so
ground.
Mom gave me Patty's number, and Ann gave Patty my number, and we connected on the phone.
On the phone?
Just on the phone.
Yeah.
This was, what year would that have been? Like
Oh,
86.
See how fast he did?
86.
Great.
Stuck in my brain forever.
Well, God is so good. He really watches over all of us and puts us together. Who knew, but we live six blocks apart.
blocks.
Our kids went to the same high school. We attended the same church. I have goosebumps everywhere. Our kids were in the same youth group. They were in high school and went to the same dances at the church. So we quickly got together and connected. And Denny and Carl just love to hear about how
Yes, they do.
our
We tell
moms
them all the time.
But that wasn't all.
That wasn't all. You got to hear the rest.
So tell them, Patty, about when you worked at your office.
I worked at a building that did displays for like trade shows and that type of thing. And the person down in packaging can't think of the name.
He's from Hayfield.
another bohemian.
What was his name?
Fred Kadira?
Fred Kadira.
Fred Kadira, yes.
Yeah,
It was
and you're
Fred
mailing
Kadira.
a package.
And I was mailing a package. My mom had been to visit and she left her pillows. She liked her own special pillows. So I was mailing them back to her and he said, Stupka. And he started telling me this story about the Stupkas he knew and that he actually babysit you, didn't he?
No.
No.
We didn't know that
My
then.
mother babysat.
Your mother babysat him when he was little. But that was part of the story. Do we have more?
Oh, that's not all. No.
There's more.
So Carl was so excited when Patty could come home and say to him, my mailman room at work, he knows the Stupkas. So this was really enchanting, and we really didn't know about the connection of how far Fred Kadira went, but he was a good Iowa bohemian person, and Carl and Denny were thrilled to hear us talk about it all the time. So then we go on, the girls are in school together and all sorts of things. Patty and Carl move a couple times. We paint Sarah's room. We fix the deck. We have barbecues.
Great help.
Carl is the best steak man in the world. That's why his grandsons are 6'4", 6'5", and 6'6". So then, Denny and I are in Springfield by Kmart, and every once in a while they'll have like the flea market yard sale tables set up. And Denny stops to look for tractors, little miniatures, because, you know, Iowa farm boy, he collects tractors. So he is quick out the door, just taking off, going to look for tractors. And I'm just lollygagging along, and I see this table, didn't pay any attention, but the man has a Hawkeye on his shirt. And I said, hey, Hawkeye, and I keep going. Can't find Denny, and I'm wandering around. I come back that way, and I'm still looking, you know, to find something to do. So this man's there, and I said, so you must like the Hawkeyes or be from Iowa. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm from Iowa. And I said, well, where from? And he said, well, as a matter of fact, I'm from Hayfield. And I said, Hayfield? Well, I'm from Garner. And he said, Garner? And we talked a little bit and said, my mother actually went to Hayfield High School and graduated. And he said, well, what's your name? And I said, well, I'm a Schaefer. I was a Schaefer, but now I'm a Halig. But my mother was a Stupka. And he said, well, I dated a Stupka. And I said, well, Millie's my mother. That's her. So I'm all excited, and I said, well, guess what? Do you know Patty Stupka? You are in the same office as her. You're her mailman. So Carl loves to hear this story over and over. Every time we went somewhere, Denny would say, please tell the cousin story. So,
Actually, he'd say, we're not going to hear that again, are we?
So we promised today we would share the cousin story.
just
So, because it was
it's
so
funny.
ironic that, you know, really God puts us all back together somehow.
Right.
So that was a little interesting.
Thanks for letting us share.
I forgot music.
Prominent researcher that Mike Prohaska used exclusively at the time, she came up with information that there was actually an error in the books of double entry of 2 different years, the same date, but 2 different years for a Martin, but the correct one was like Bartholomew, but it was in a Czech name. And she said, I am absolutely certain that this would be a relative of Sandy Haley, not what you're thinking. And then she had those names. So we're hoping to work with her and have that confirmed with some kind of records if anybody wants to go back further in the genealogy. But our trip was amazing. We did the cemeteries, being able to go to the Stupka home site like that. Many things were added to it, and we didn't go in, of course. They have privacy laws of just getting in a church or just getting to identify a property. They actually have to have some kind of contact that they were able to arrange. And the church and the current priest at that time, he was real good to us in that case. But the Stupka place was all enclosed, kind of fenced around, as you saw in that little picture. And it was
definitely added onto, but the original structure, if you saw, there was a little plate up above, and that date is
1803.
1803. So that would have been probably the original structure, and if they rebuilt something, they often took that plate and salvaged that as well. But things over there are so different, you know, they just definitely refurbish much longer than we take things down and start anew. So that was real interesting. And yes?
Didn't your mom and Agnes take a trip over there too?
My mom did, but Dick went with his mother couple times, didn't they? Is that the only ones that went that you know of?
My sister and brother.
Yeah, but you all went
Yeah.
from the Fermani.
Just ourselves, yeah.
Yeah, Agnes Stupka Fermani.
Yep.
She took her kids a couple times. But I think what you told me was you didn't really travel to certain sites.
We just traveled.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful countryside. It is just so amazingly similar to Iowa in that when you're out in the richness of the farmland. Plesen, P-L-S-E-N, is where the Stupka homesteads were located, and it was actually, somebody said southwest, a little bit from Prague. Somebody mentioned that earlier. It was a little bit more, southeast, I'd say, from Prague. And then Denny's family farms and such, when they were cottagers as well, was over. Heard about it, and we said, oh, that'd be great. I hope they do it again. Denny was really good to say that he wanted to be here and encourage me to go and support me. So, yeah, he actually had something going on in D.C. that we came the other direction. But we did go to Prague, and I do have some more information. If somebody really wants to share over the internet, we can do stuff like that. But we went to a town called Dysina, D-Y-S-I-N-A. And we actually were on just to go back, we were on a Viking river cruise from Budapest and into Passau,
With your sister.
Germany. And my sister Lindy and Gary, who just came a short while ago, it's her class reunion, so she was in Garner. But we were on this river cruise, and we, Denny's sister, Mary Halake Best, she contacted a genealogy tour guide, and they were able to research the Halake family, which, who's going to be excited about that too? Somebody that lost track of the Halakes. And so we were going to set this up after our river cruise to go see some of these sites if they could find anything. And we got pretty excited about it when Mike Prohaska, who does a lot of genealogy, if you all know him or get a chance to know him, he's researching every single family that had settled at one time in Duncan, Iowa. And no matter if it's his relative or not, if they're Czech, it's the Czech settlers of Iowa. So anyway, he sent me some information from his tour guide that he'd been several times already. And in that, we realized that Denny's ancestral great-greats times 3 were living very close enough to mine. So we contacted them and said, hey, can we slip in the Stupkas with the Halakes and make this a grand old thing? So our Martin Stupka grandfather was married to Anna Rubish, so we even stuck in the Rubishes. And we were able to find these home sites, some of them change. It's a little different over there. If a house burns down or falls apart, they actually reassign that number to another property. So it's a little hard to track. But we happened to luck out with some really good researchers, and they were able to find the original Martin with Catherine Novak home. And Denny has a few pictures. I had a folder that I must have left out at the place we're staying, but you actually just walk around with that. But you know, if anybody has an interest or wants to know some of these resources, if you ever have a
But
chance
it's the original Stupka house. So.
for a trip like that. The original was probably a lot smaller, and they did some research on the Stupka family, that they were actually called cottagers, and that was kind of like a laborer, and they were paid from the landowner, and they probably never would have had a chance to own land, because that was the system, the class system at that time. If they
didn't have some opportunity to own land. So that kind of explains why they were so brave to take off to America, you know, to take that opportunity to better them, or, you know, have more in their life. So they actually, it was interesting because some of them actually lived in different houses. It would say like Dicena number 7. And there were 2 little villages that were very close together. And a church was usually what was the melding point for everything. We were able to go back to St. James Church where the baptisms took place, and they had baptismal records that we were able to get copies of. And it was a fascinating opportunity, overwhelming. We went to the graveyards, of course, because that's where you get a lot of history, but over there, the grave is utilized by many decades of patrons of families, yes. And as the years go by, they're just able to, it compresses and they're able to go. So there isn't a specific stone that might say Martin Stupka, It would just say Stupka, and then there would be several layers. So you would have to go back into the church records to find exactness. But 2 of these researchers that we contacted did find a lot of information for us. And here's something that is disputable, and we have that book also, and it's a wealth of information, but it doesn't really say, you know, my grandpa was Martin, your Albert, Anton, you know, Rose were represented here, and then they're all of Martin. We're all of Senior Martin. And then before that, I was kind of understanding that might have been another Martin that was above that. But Olga, this one rarely prominent researcher that Mike Prohaska used exclusively at the time, she came up with information that there was actually an error in the books of double entry of 2 different years, the same date, but 2 different years for a Martin, but the correct one was Bartolomaj, like Bartholomew, but it was in a Czech name. And she said, I am absolutely certain that this would be a relative of Sandy Halik, not what you're thinking. And then she had those names. So we're hoping to work with her and have that confirmed with some kind of records if anybody wants to go back further in the genealogy. But our trip was amazing. We did the cemeteries, being able to go to the Stupka home site like that. Many things were added to it, and we didn't go in, of course. They have privacy laws also. Even the tour guides don't have the liberty of just getting in a church or just getting to identify a property. They actually have to have some kind of contact that they were able to arrange. And the church and the current priest at that time, he was real good to us in that case. But the Stupka place was all enclosed, kind of fenced around, as you saw in that little picture. And it was it definitely added on to, but the original structure, if you saw, there was a little plate up above, and that date is 1803. So that would have been probably the original structure, and if they rebuilt something, they often took that plate and salvaged that as well. But things over there are so different, you know, they just definitely refurbish much longer than we take things down and start anew. So that was really interesting. Yes?
Didn't your mom and Agnes take a trip over there too?
My mom didn't, but Dick went with his mother couple times, didn't they? Is that the only ones that went that you know of?
My sister and brother.
Yeah, but you all went from the Fermanic.
Just ourselves, yeah.
Yeah, Agnes Stupka Fermanic. Yeah. She took her kids a couple times. But I think what you told me was you didn't really travel to certain sites.
We just traveled.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful countryside. It is just so amazingly similar to Iowa in that when you're out in the richness of the farmland. Plesen, P-L-S-E-N, is where the Stupka homesteads were located, and it was actually, somebody said southwest, a little bit from Prague. Somebody mentioned that earlier. It was a little bit more, southeast, I'd say, from Prague. And then Denny's family farms and such, when they were cottagers as well, was over just 40 miles away. It was amazing. So as you think of all these settlers coming back to coming on into America and then connecting with each other. And actually, Kathy's mother, Anna, wrote beautifully. She loved to journal and write things, and Dorothy maybe did too. Millie not so much. She was the youngest, and she was the baby, and she always told us she was a little spoiled. But Aunt Anna, and maybe Agnes, I'm not sure, but she had several recaps of the Stupka history and talked about them going to Oregon to visit. And didn't Uncle Clarence, you send me pictures of them in the first Ford going out to, his first car, a Ford, going out to Oregon, and one is with great-grandpa Martin, with the beard, and then some of the children in the back. Rose was one of them, the family of Rose here. So that was interesting. So I think we all have little tidbits of items that if there was a person that was centrally wanted to be a clearinghouse for that, you know, like Joe or Deborah, Kathy, Patty, I mean, Mary, there's so many possibilities that you could link together, and we could really have this ongoing opportunity. So anyway, that's, yeah, did I miss something?
Sandy, just one thing over there, and I know Dick and Clarence know this. When you're baptized into a church, all the records are actually kept in the church and not kept at what we think as the county courthouse. They're all kept in the church. So when you're baptized there, you're married there, you're buried there. So when a family dies out, say for instance the Stupkas all migrate to the United States, and if you go to the cemetery, you might not find a Stupka tombstone, because as that family dies out, then say a Churchyard Rubish has the right to buy that plot, and then it turns into a Rubish tombstone. But the records are kept in the church. So you can go to the church and you can say, I'm looking for, you know, Martin J. Stupka, Sr., migrated in the late 1800s. They go, oh yes, he was plot number, but it's no longer a Stupka tombstone. So it's pretty interesting the way they do it. The space over there isn't like the United States, it's more at a premium. But it's fascinating because their record keeping is so much better than ours in the United States. But again, it's all done through the church, so it's pretty cool.
And we also went down to Pleasant, which is that district that the Stupkas were in, and is known for Pilsner beer. So we went to the Pilsner beer place, and a museum that honors
George Patton.
George Patton, beyond measure. They have statues of him. They have George Patton Memorial Day because he was really credited for their freedom.
He beat the Russians to, George Patton beat the Russians to Pleasant. We pronounce it Pilsen. So they honored the Americans over there. But there's a life-size statue of George Patton, an entire museum to the Third Army. It is absolutely fascinating. And they have an American Patton Day every year.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
They love Americans coming. They're really good to us. The language was a barrier. Our tour guides were able to, fortunately, speak enough Czech that we were able to communicate well. But one of our requests was Sunday morning, make sure we find a Czech church that we could go to. We preferred English Mass, but if it was Czech, that was good too. And then a little maybe roadside or, you know, a come and go kind of situation that gave us kolaches and coffee. Not to be had in the Czech Republic. You have to search everywhere for a kolache. That is just not the way it is. And there's no little roadside shops like that. But Prague itself is just amazingly beautiful. If you have one opportunity to do just something in the Czech Republic, Prague is so beautiful. Just the architecture and the culture of the city is retained with its beauty. It's so beautiful. So at some day, if somebody wants to organize all our family history and a possible trip to the Czech Republic, that would be amazing. So, any questions? Thanks.
Thank you.
I have 4 children. One is here with me today.
I'm Dick. I'm here from Moss.
Anna Talak, and this is my
I got no
husband.
comment at all.
We have 3 girls.
Okay, that's good.
Hold it. She's gonna talk. She's gonna.
Hey Bob, this is Susan, my wife, Todd, Jennifer, and Jessica. My grandfather's name was Albert, and my mother's name is Edna Stupka.
We're on? Okay.
We're on tape.
I'm Jim Goodall.
And I'm Kitty Leisure. We're brother and sister.
And I'm Art Leisure. I'm Kitty's husband. Art Leisure. The
That one.
We're the granddaughter and grandson of Louis Stupka. We're very happy to be here today.
You got a what?
I say we're very happy to be here today. Do you want to hear any jokes? I'm very jealous.
And this is my daughter Mary Rohrback, and what would you tell about that?
And I'm Mary Rohrback, Mary Unger Rohrback. This is my son Jerry. Harry Unger couldn't be here today. He had cataract surgery last Wednesday and came home from the hospital on Friday, and he's doing fine. Introduce yourself.
Rohrback, Mary Unger Rohrback's daughter. And this is my dad.
All right, tell us who you, what your name is. And Rose. Rose West. All right. Joe West.
Teresa Mraz.
Paul Mraz. Dave Mraz.
Okay, this is the Alice Stupka folks family. I'm Judy Myers. This is my husband Dale, Scott, Jackie, and Sherry.
I'm Marilyn. I'm Alice's eldest daughter. This is my family, Melissa, Mark, and Mel Sampson.
I'm Helen Stupka Stroud family, and this is my granddaughter Paige.
And I'm George Stupka. And beside me is Paul Stupka, and then beside him is Stupka.
Yeah.
I'm Ed Stupka, Albert's boy. And to my right is my wife Ann, my granddaughter Karen, my daughter Paulette Villers, and Roger Villers, the husband of Paulette. Patty, her name is Patty Mitchell now, and Sarah the daughter, and Karen the daughter.
Sarah.
Okay. My name is Ray Vout, Albert Stupka's grandson. My family's Susan, Jennifer, Jessica, and Todd.
Dick, where was this at?
I think it's Clarion.
Clarion?
Sarah's in her 40s. A couple years ago. It was the year that Harry Unger had his eyes worked on.
I think it was actually. I'm Diana Bradfield. I am Frank Stupka's daughter. This is my husband Leon and my children. Oh, name them. There's Bill, James, and this is Anthony.
And I'm Ed Stupka, I'm Anton Stupka's son, and this is my wife, Fern. And Rose, why didn't you say this is my sister Rose?
That's so good.